taking it slow, slowing down.
100%. Jim Shanae, our buddy here at Zoweh, says all the time, if we can create a gap between the stimulus and the response, right? If we can pause for a moment, if we can slow things down in that moment, we have a chance.
Yeah. With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson here with S.J. Jennings and our walk-in music.
You would think with the caliber of sound engineer and team that we have, that we could do better than just holding a phone up to the microphone.
Well, the only way I could do it was to do it that way because you guys weren't giving me permission to.
That's right.
So I had to violate. Yeah. Who's in charge of this?
Yeah.
Ruckusy mob anyway. Oh, so glad you're with us. Part 2. Therefore, if you joined us last week, we have the same clothes on. Every now and then we do that.
We do.
Sometimes we don't.
We record them all at the same time.
Sometimes we don't, but today we do. Yeah. So October 17th, I think,
is when this episode is dropping. Yeah,
we can
middle of October.
Yep, and
leaves are changing. Pumpkin spice latte season is in full force.
I'm gonna own it. I've had one.
Ugh.
I have. And
they're addictive, man. You got to be careful.
Well, I've had another one too.
Oh, see,
so
start getting a twitch in the corner of your eye,
and I don't know who. I think Starbucks or Dunkin' on the pumpkin spice latte.
Well, I got to go with Dunkin' Donuts every time because I'm a New England guy.
It's too much whipped cream for me, man. Believe it or not, my daughter Abby.
Do they not make it to order at Dunkin' Donuts?
Well, I guess they could. I don't like to be too demanding. I hear the people order some of their stuff. I'm like,
oh my gosh,
yeah. Man. Yeah.
Have you ever heard Tim Hawkins trying to order for his wife? Can I get a decaf, skinny, no milk, soy latte with whipped cream and no cup? I mean, it's like it's hilarious. Look it up. Man. It's funny. But yeah. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts guy all the way, though. It's a little more, I don't know. Starbucks is a little too highfalutin for me. Starbucks.
I just took about 3 pitches right there.
I appreciate it. Thanks for not swinging.
Yeah, but Dunkin', for me, I mean, I'm not going into Dunkin' Donuts and just getting the pumpkin spice latte. I'll take that curler. I'll have one of those custard fills. And man, that's
you know what they actually quit calling it Dunkin' Donuts now because they have so much more than donuts.
Oh yeah,
they have breakfast sandwiches and all kinds of pumpkin spice lattes.
It's my youngest daughter, man. It's her jam. Go to.
I remember being a kid. 100%. My dad and I would go to Dunkin' Donuts. I'd get a chocolate cruller.
Oh, yeah.
He'd get an old-fashioned and a cup of coffee, black, and we'd go sit at the airport and watch the planes.
That's a good day.
Eat our donuts.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all they had was donuts and coffee. That was it.
Abby introduced me to these they're like these egg nugget things. I don't know how they make them. It's like these little bitty tiny muffins, but it's apparently your egg scramble in that thing. Yeah. And I was like, nah.
Donuts.
I want an egg.
Munchkins, the donut holes.
Oh, Munchkins are awesome.
Yeah. And coffee. That's really all
they should be doing. That's all they should be doing. Yeah. But anyway.
comment below if you're a Dunkin' Donuts guy or a Starbucks guy.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a different one altogether.
You know what? Let's send them a gift card.
Yeah. All right. For what?
For the other one. For the opposite.
Yeah. If you're a Starbucks guy, we'll send you a Dunkin' Donuts card. That's right.
Yeah. That's funny. All right.
What are we talking about?
Part two of reentry.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, we're talking about when men get away to be with God and step into an encounter weekend like we had this first weekend in October. How do they go home? What does reentry look like? Mm-hmm. And we commission them. The final session is a few do's and don'ts, and we realized, with or without a conference, these are some pretty good, pretty savvy. There's a good word. That's in my dad. That's one of my dad words. My dad used that word, savvy.
Very piratey.
Yeah, savvy. One of those savvy ideas of men. The home front's just critical. How you reign and rule there. With the help of your spouse, with that co-regency, that shared responsibility of the home front. But how do you conduct yourself there? How do you love and lead well?
Yeah, or if you're a single parent or just single.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Or single again.
Right.
How does that all look? And so we talked last time about walking with God.
Yeah.
So
and that's the abundant life.
Yeah.
Right.
That's critical. Mm-hmm. And then we talked too about no announcements, no declarations, just live this way. Mm-hmm. You quoted Barkalow about, this is your new normal. Mm-hmm. And what did you say? What you said?
I said you can take the mountaintop with you wherever you go.
Yeah, take it with you.
I mean, just live this way, as Gary would say.
So I want to hit a couple more that I think are really good. Again, whether you've been to the event or not, but and we've talked about this on a podcast before. But I think the headline is "Take it slow."
Oh yeah,
just slow it down, slow the game down, slow the war down, slow it down. But before we kind of jump full into this, I want to take a quick break and share some things with our listeners.
It's sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts this week, so check this out.
Actually, SJ, we're offering something better than Dunkin' Donuts, better than Starbucks, better than classic black coffee, better than frou-frou frothy latte stuff. Zoweh has saving bucks. Head on over to zoweoutpost.com/free. We've got 35 resources available for those who are interested in more. Because there's always more at Zoweh. The masculine journey, mothering. You are the beloved, warfare and training, live events, soaking prayer, and so much more. Feed your mind and soul with our Zoweh Savin' Bucks page. zoweoutpost.com/free. Back to you, gentlemen.
All right, welcome back to the Exploring More podcast. And
you thought we hit the big time there, and we're sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts now. We're really not.
No.
But hope you enjoyed what we shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is, and we've talked about this on another podcast, actually, and we can refer to that. Maybe Caleb can kind of work that podcast in there, that 3 mile per hour God.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So the
Godspeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the encouragement is take it slow.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down. And I'm not talking about, just what would I say? Maybe the pace of life, or, get more quiet time, or just slow down, take it slow. And I think back, SJ, why this is so important is to listen. You've got to slow down, to to be confronted, because you will be as a man on the home front, to just be confronted with what's going on. From appliances and vehicles and bills and things that don't have a pulse, but are very much alive in your world. Your reactions and your responses to those things, just to take it slow, walk with God.
Yeah.
So we finished the last podcast with walk with God, and I think this is complementary to that, which is, take it slow. The slower you can move, the more deliberate, the more discerning. I mean, that to me is the critical ingredient to discernment is slow. Taking it slow, slowing
100%. The Jim Shanae, our buddy here at Zoweh, says all the time, if we can create a gap between the stimulus and the response, right? If we can pause for a moment, if we can slow things down in that moment, we have a chance to not just operate out of what we've been trained to do, which is to respond. Come on, you got to make a decision. That guy cut you off, be angry at that guy. I mean, all this false self, there's nothing slow and deliberate about the false self.
I can't think of too many situations that I've just been so brooding in it that I can't overcome that with some time. And one of these fruits of the Spirit that we don't, self-control. Yeah. And so I like that you bring that up, because the stimulus and response versus the stimulus and reaction. If I go with some of my first reactions, it's not going to go well. And I think that's how fast the false self can be. Yeah, it's just a reactionary, a reactionary creature that will try to pull you down and everybody else with you in that moment of, and usually you go one of two ways in reaction. You react, it gets hot fast, so you react in a hot way, and with anger. And the other one I think of, I just go passive. I just go, it looks like I'm biding time. I'm not saying anything, but I'm actually gone. I'm so either overwhelmed or overtaken by what's going on. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And I can be standing right in front of her, Robin, or them, and I'm gone. Yep. And so I think the second one is actually better. If I could pick of the two,
it's a little better.
Then I can throw it in gear and smelling salts wake up.
There's a little less collateral damage.
I was going to say, once you've trashed the moment, everybody leaves and you're the one who has to pick all the stuff up that you just emotionally and reactionally threw around.
So it's October. So I'm thinking, baseball, World Series. And as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about Kevin Costner for Love of the Game. Yeah. Yeah. And he's on the mound and he says, clear the mechanism. And all of the noise and all of the distraction it's not gone, right?
No, but it
goes into
mutes and it comes into a gray.
Yeah, it's not his focus. And the focus is the glove on the other side of the plate. And he's able to pitch this amazing game. Yeah. It's a great story, but it's a parable maybe that can help us understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a great story, and that's a great scene. And I think about in those moments, taking it slow, dialing it down. I'm pretty sure in that film, it's just it's his dad. Just throw it to the glove, right? Just throw it to the mitt. I'm pretty sure.
And in the peak moment of the film. Yeah. That's what helps him.
So back to walking with God and experiencing Him and discernment, and I think that's the beauty of that illustration you brought up was if I can take it slow and more deliberate and take that moment, that'll make it a response rather than a reaction. Don't go with your first impulse, especially when you've been so well trained to be false self-dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've spent a weekend seeing that and uncovering that imposter. So,
Yeah.
if your true self is more deliberate and can arrive before there's damage done and casualty, that's why I would pick option 2. I'd rather be frozen for a moment. At least it looks smarter. and then, wake up to, I need to respond to this. What's going on? And there's that question that we say, and that's the prayer. God, what's going on here?
Right.
What's needed of me?
Yeah.
And
what do you have for me?
And what do you have for me? And the bonus to this, take it slow. Just because you take it slow doesn't mean it's going to go well. But I think taking it slow, it definitely increases the odds. But you've got people involved. So we've said this before many times that, look, just because it doesn't go well doesn't mean you did it wrong.
That's right.
You could react calmly, but if somebody in front of you is kind of in there, and it can be your wife, it can be your kids, it can be if they're kind of in false self-dominant, what you want to definitely not do is bring your false self to that, because that's going to get all crazy. Mm-hmm. So if they're upset and you're stepping in and you can't be calm, self-controlled, and in a space of responding, and because you're probably bigger and stronger, you can intimidate, you can make people leave.
The clenched teeth thing.
You can scowl and yell. Mm-hmm. So all of that can definitely end the crisis, but you just created the reputation. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're after in going slow. Like you said, a couple of those, and Johnny or Sally may say to Mom, man, Dad didn't blow up again. Or, I thought Dad was going to lose it, and he didn't do that at all. Mm-hmm. And then Mom says, honey, you really did that well.
Something's different.
Or at least you don't get a lecture from her about how bad you did that, Yeah. So take it slow, I think, is that's just a skill and an ability to exercise your will. And that's what most men have lost in all the wounding, all the agreements, all the dealing with guilt, shame, and fear. All of that compiled has compromised their will to the degree they don't have discernment. Mm-hmm. They just react. They're on autopilot. And that autopilot is, for most of them, Christian men, 100% included, is false self. Until you take over that seat, until you do some work with God to see this creature that keeps crashing you into, just had 9/11 anniversary. I couldn't help but think of, the hijacking. It's a hijacked plane and it's crashing into things, causing damage, and so all of that to say, hey, slow down. It's your friend. You can always, like I said, if you go passive, you can always go back and kind of pick something up, but it's very, very difficult to undo something you just did in your reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that before with the false self. When it gets out of the cage, it's yours.
Yeah, you're responsible for it.
It's your pit bull. Mm-hmm. And if it bites something or somebody, you're responsible for it.
Yeah.
So,
it makes me think of you were just talking about calling, who was it, FedEx or UPS?
FedEx,
you're calling the office to try to get some kind of settlement on one of your drivers backed over our flowers and our mailbox.
Destroyed our stuff.
You're responsible. It's your truck, your driver. It's that same idea.
Yeah.
So, moving on. Okay, I want to step into another one.
Well, before you move on from Take It Slow, coming home from the weekend, something I want to say. We just came back from a mission a few weeks ago, and you said that to me on the day after we got back. I love that we have integrated that, not just into our lives coming home from a weekend as a participant, let's say, as we've talked about, but we live this way at Zoweh too. And you can live this way at your place of work, maybe, if you're gone on mission. We went to New Jersey and saw the biker church guys, back in September.
That's a whole fun thing to talk about.
Oh my gosh, it was great. But, Monday you're like, hey man, let's take it slow today, because we've poured out a lot.
I told you to go home. I mean, we both were in here for a minute, just kind of putting some things up and away. And I said, don't stick around very long, go home.
Yeah.
Take it slow.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's important.
We would, back to taking it slow. That's funny. It makes me think of, we say two or three things. Don't make any major life decisions, after the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And don't, what do they say when you, don't operate any heavy equipment.
Yeah. No heavy machinery.
Don't jump into the next thing.
Right.
Don't jump into the next thing. That's all kind of part of what I would say taking it slow, looks like. Heal up,
let it soak in a little bit.
You've just been most guys have been in a battle over the weekend. We've been told a few times, and we don't call it a retreat, but you shouldn't call this a retreat. I'm exhausted.
Right.
So right. You got to go home, but you do need to re-enter the home front, but at the same time, rest up.
Get some treatment.
Get some healing time. Right. So, all right, this is one that it's a little less dramatic, a little more funny, and because we hear it a lot about. So one is to go home and make an announcement. Don't do that. This is another one of those don'ts. Should take it slow and don't. So here it is. Don't go home and start a ministry, or don't go home and throw up on your pastor and your church. There's a home front there, but in this community of faith and community of believers, the old Zorro idea comes to mind. Antonio Banderas and
he's
who's the old Zorro?
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, yeah.
You would have. Yeah, he's trained to fight. You seem trained to drink.
Yeah, you. And then he says you would have fought bravely and died quickly.
Yeah.
And so being just as the home front, I get it. It's so wonderful, so eventful to encounter God, to hear His voice, to know from an experience that you had, not just from some sermon that was taught or some theology that was, approved, that experientially that you are a beloved son because He showed you and He told you. So yes, I'm that guy. I want that for all my friends.
Right.
I want that for other men.
You're excited about it because of what's happened to you.
So so that next week in men's group, or that next week in Sunday school, or that next time, that's
at work.
You want to, 1 Peter 5 says, be prepared to give an answer for the hope that's within you. We talk about that. We share that. And the point is, like, do it kind of quickly, do it in a, bite size. Don't throw up on
elevator speech.
Don't throw up on them. So it's prepare. How was that weekend? Because a lot of people know that you went.
Yeah.
And
man, one of the most impactful things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Whoa. What's that mean, dude?
That's right. You may get a question or two, which is kind of an invitation to more. Great response. But I think that's starting a ministry and, I'm gonna take this home to my church. Pastors
bring 100 guys.
Pastors have a very challenging job, and one of those jobs is some security. Around the parameter of what gets in and what doesn't. And you may have favor there. You may be trusted. Maybe you're an elder or deacon, but we've seen that not go well. And when that doesn't go well, diminishment comes in, disqualification comes in, and lots of things can go sideways. So the whole thing, SJ, is ministry really isn't the goal. That's the bottom line. Ministry is not the goal of our lives. Intimacy is. Intimacy with God, intimacy with each other, love God, love others.
Mm-hmm.
And ministry is supposed to flow.
Jesus said those were kind of important.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so ministry is supposed to flow from those things.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I know I've done it. You can do ministry, but not necessarily enjoy intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that bass backwards is not sustainable. It's not helpful. And it's really not the way it was designed to be. Jesus said, vine and branches, stay connected to me, right? It's great that you can do all these things in the big scrimmage in Luke. He gives them power. They go out, do what he does. They come back. We did what you do. And he says, I know, it's going to work. It's going to be awesome. And then he says, but don't rejoice in those things that you can do. Rejoice in that your name is in the Lamb's Book of Life, that your identity is secure, that you are beloved sons. Rejoice in that, in your intimacy, vine and branches. So that's one of our big exhortations to, and you're one of those guys that when you came, you took it home. I think you in a position you were in, you were cunning. You don't have to make a bunch of announcements of, I'm going to take a whole lot of, I'm going to bring a bunch of guys next time. You just kind of showed up with 20 more guys.
First year back, there were 10 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year was twice that. The next year was twice that. And it just kept multiplying. I think we had a year we had 70 guys there.
Yeah.
But,
and so that, but that, some guys want to rush the field. They want to see.
I didn't go back. I knew, Michael, because you brought it up, I'm just going to talk about it. I knew I didn't want it to become just another thing that we did.
Yeah.
And so I knew I needed to bring a few guys so that they would understand.
Yeah.
So that I could share, but they could too.
Yeah.
And we had this, to me, that's how a movement starts.
Right. Well, you had those, when you got to 70, I'll bet the house that half of them were returners from the previous 2 years, coming back for more.
Mm-hmm. And they started inviting way more guys than I could.
That's right. That's how it works. So, nothing wrong with having a presence. That's different than starting a ministry or, so that leads me to, okay, if you're not going to start a ministry, I don't do that. But instead, what if you invited a couple guys?
That's it.
To walk with you and let you walk with them. I think I particularly
say more than 3 or 4 guys.
I think Heart of a Warrior is a great book to explore together. I think King Me is a great book to explore together.
Yep.
But even before those things, especially if you're coming home with somebody, that's a different thing. If you're coming home from a weekend, so I want to apply it to both conference alumni that we do these invitations and encouragements, or just dudes, man, at home. Create an environment, create a space that you can maybe invite 8 or 9, and if 3 show up, roll.
Yep.
I was that guy who was always disappointed about the 6 that didn't. And the enemy, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? Rather than
you've done some work in that area.
Rather than just be excited for the 2 or 3 that come. And so instead of the book, which would be, we're all for that. But if you took the first, let's say you had 3 friends, there's 4 of you. If you just took your first 4 weeks and shared, each man had a turn to share their story, you would be digging footers and laying a foundation for what we believe is better than a semester together in some book, even if that book is one of the books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, Philippians or Galatians. Yes,
Mere Christianity,
do those,
whatever it is.
Do those. But if you don't know each other, it's just going to be a class.
It's another Bible study. It's another book study. I mean, I just have this image of, okay, here's the book we're going to read. In 4 weeks after each one of you has taken a turn and shared your story.
And back to the go slow, we created in this is confession, right? We created a video series with Heart of a Warrior back in 16. And we knew how that world worked of, okay, it's got to be 12 weeks. You can't go longer than that. Guys don't want to do that. So it's 12 weeks, which is a good chunk of time.
Mm-hmm.
But what we found is the men that have taken a year to go through Heart of a Warrior and have incorporated stories and are going slow. They're the ones that come. The kingdom they come away with the greatest riches.
Oh yeah.
And that's friendship.
Yep.
And that's connection. Yes, orientation, very, very important. Because it is a team sport. I don't want to scale some mountain with a guy that's never scaled a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're all learning to do some of that friendship together over time, I mean, we have guys that have had small groups now for a decade.
Yeah.
And they're the closest. And how did that happen? 1 week at a time.
Yep.
One gathering at a time. And there's a lot of guys that come and go. And sometimes, guys don't come back. But I just think the whole, ministry is not what we need more of.
No.
We need more intimacy because that's what makes the greatest impact on the lives around you.
Sure. Ministry's the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much so. I mean, these relationships and these ideas are so important to us that we're actually changing some of how we talk about what we do here at Zoweh.
Yeah.
We're in conversation about, Zoweh creates environments and resources to foster intimacy with God. Well, it's environments, resources, and encourages relationships.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Relationships is going to be a part of what we do.
I think it was kind of understood.
It was an understood thing.
And I think now it needs to be absolutely.
It's got to be part of the statement.
How are we doing on time, Caleb? Because I want to, what do you have left? Oh, crap. Okay. So
5 to 8 minutes. Hey, wait, your name's on the podcast. If we go 8 minutes,
okay.
It's
my
fine.
name's on the podcast. let me play some more.
Give me that thing.
Now my name's on the podcast.
It is. I see it behind you.
I know. Well, I can't play the intro music, but I can go late. Okay,
you can
I get
go
it.
long.
There's boundaries.
Yeah.
So here's the last one I want to talk about in we'll say 7 or 8 minutes. Okay, and it is freedom, right? We talked about that in part 1 in the opening. It is for freedom, Galatians 5:1, that Christ came to set us free. You will have to defend your boundaries, your borders.
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life.
Mm-hmm. Dwight D. Eisenhower.
And the Eisenhower quote, yes.
Right. Freedom is not long entrusted to the weak or timid. I mean, you've got to guard your borders.
This is the last one. And, usually by the end of the weekend, there is an awareness for this that has a transforming effect on men when they realize that all their life as an image bearer, their entire life, their life has been assaulted. Their life has been opposed. Their life has been hated. So when you go home, you have a bit of, let's say, a prescription now that you should.
Neo at the end of the Matrix.
Yeah.
Now I see it.
Yeah. So thank you. Let's run through that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of the Matrix, Neo, he unplugs from the Matrix and he starts training. Neo says to Morpheus, so what are you telling me? That I'm going to dodge bullets?
No, Neo. What I'm telling you is that when you're ready, you won't have to.
When you're ready. So there's some things that have to happen, and there's some training and some seeing it, Nope. And in the red pill, blue pill, he says, no one can tell you.
Right.
I can tell you about the Matrix, but you have to see it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the weekend
all I'm offering is the truth.
Oh man. So they go through training, and then there's the famous subway scene, where they play the spaghetti Western,
Mm-hmm.
If I could whistle well, ooh,
Yeah.
it's that there, and there he is with the agent, and he fires the gun, and he exercises, and Trinity says, "What's he doing?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Morpheus says, "He's starting to believe."
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I didn't know we were going to go there, but I'm so glad we did.
No, because then at the end of the film, he actually gets shot. That the agent catches him and shoots him. And if you die in the Matrix, you die in real life, right? Is the whole thing. And then because he's the one, he wakes up from that in the Matrix. And then sees, it doesn't look like a hallway anymore. Mm-hmm. And the agents don't look like agents. It's all, he can see it for what it really is. And then can exercise his will in it.
So all of that to say, it's not after the weekend that your life's opposed. It's always been.
Yep.
But after that orientation and training, you should be able to start seeing and recognizing enemy activity on your home front.
Right.
First, your heart, right? What has Josh taught us? Hands, heart, home.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be in your hands so you can get it in your heart and you can take it home. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of training. And so I want to just talk a little bit about, you go back in your story to recover from some of those losses. And that's incredible. Just that you could, with Jesus, redeem losses and assaults and wounding moments. So that's where, the enemy's been there using people to hurt you. And
there's a difference between being an unwilling subject or an unoriented or,
disoriented,
unaware subject to being subject to something. So because we're in Middle Earth, because we're in the in-between time, we are subject to the spiritual warfare that's going on around us. But if you're not aware of it, if you don't know that you're plugged into the Matrix, if you don't know the truth, then you're just subject to it and you're not even a participant. You have no chance.
Yeah, and I think the brutal part of that for my life was one of my only options really was to complain. Mm-hmm. Just complain about it. And instead of entering into conversations with God about what's happening, is this why? Why is this happening? Mm-hmm. Well, when you know that you're in a war and there's an enemy that comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Your ancient enemy.
So therefore, and the victory's ours, the freedom's ours. Are we enforcing that? So we spent a little bit of time in closing the weekend with preparing them for opening or reopening their home fronts, because the enemy's been there. The enemy's probably used them in their marriage and in their fathering, in ways that isn't good. So we often, and we do our best to stress this or make this really clear. The enemy wants to use you. God wants to partner with you.
Yeah.
There's kind of a churchy idea out there about, God using you.
Yeah. And use me as a tool in your hand, God.
And I get it.
I don't want to be a tool.
Yeah. That's so British. You tool. And so, and yet I want to be a tool, so I think that you're making the point, that what if we could partner with God for life and love and freedom rather than be used by the enemy to steal, kill, and destroy, because it happens in relationship.
Yeah.
If wounding people wound people, if hurting people can hurt people, then we want to be on the side of recovering people and redeeming our hearts, minds, bodies, souls, that we can then be helpful and encouraging to others on the journey. And so I just want to read, a couple things that are a little bit concerning, because there's a counterattack.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it.
Especially
the weekend,
as
you go home.
Oh yeah. If you're complacent and unaware of the spiritual war, and you're not a combatant from the enemy's perspective, then you're not a threat.
POW.
You're just kind of hanging out there and doing what they want you to do, not doing what they don't want you to do. All of that, you're just kind of
subject to their prompts, their whispers, all that.
But once you become awake, this stuff starts to kind of happen.
So Luke 8, it says, study the story of the farmer planting seed. When anyone hears news of the kingdom and doesn't take it in, it just remains on the surface. And so the evil one comes along and plucks it out of the person's heart. Wait, weren't we talking about seeds and soil? And plucks it out of his heart. This is Jesus explaining the parable. Right out of that person's heart, this is the seed the farmer scatters on the road. So that's Matthew 13. In just a chapter before that, Jesus says in Matthew 12, because he's actually talking about how this works, and he's explaining the importance of the enemy and opposition here. And so earlier in chapter 12, he says, when an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I'll return to the house that I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. Yeah, I'm not talking about demon possession. I'm talking about demon influence. I'm talking about foul spirits that are at work. So, and he says, and the final condition of that person is worse than the first. This little passage, which is really a bit obscure and not often talked about, I believe, explains relapse.
100%. I was thinking about the recovery community when you
taking ground and then losing ground.
Yep.
And losing ground again. Taking and losing.
Worse than the first.
And worse than the first.
Yep.
And worse than the first.
There's no doubt.
When your decisions are under an influence, right? And you have not, so you've gotten some sobriety, let's say, and I'm not talking about the recovery community. We're all in recovery.
Absolutely.
So when you get some sobriety, you are a bad choice away from reentry, and where do those thoughts come from? You were just saying this at biker church a month ago. Mm-hmm. If you think every thought's your own, then you're living in way too small a story.
You are plugged into the matrix,
you're under the influence. Yep. You're under the influence, and so this point that we're making, laboring, is that you're going to have to, I think of Gandalf, you shall not pass. Mm-hmm. I think of Joseph, you may need to get out of there when she's, trying to invite you, into a compromising situation, and whether it's sexual or whatever the compromise is.
Right.
That you shall not pass, no, stopping bullets, or get out of there. Mm-hmm. Change the scenery. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is probably, we spend a lot of the weekend exposing the enemy.
Yeah.
And what they've done, and invite men to go recover with Jesus and the work of the cross, resurrection, and ascension. Go reclaim what they have stolen, what they've taken, what desires they've killed, and just seen it over and over again to empower men, right? Dodging is good, Neo, but
that's the early part of training, is trying to get hit less.
Enforcing power and authority.
Enforcing
Fantastic.
your will on the ones that are trying to assault you
in the spiritual realm. Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah. And so all of that is just part. I think we swang at it.
That's a great.
We swang. Yeah, we swang at it. We swung. I think all of that's just part of some of this reentry, and I think maybe the quote that I one of the quotes that I love in King Me, and it's not mine. It's Dan Allender. But one of the quotes that I love and believe is just really, really critical is maybe we can just put a period on it for reentry and for any man in his journey is when Dan Allender wrote, "Find like-hearted kings moving in the same direction." Just time out right there. That to me is our alumni association of our events. They have a shot at being like-hearted. They went through this together.
Right.
So find like-hearted kings moving in the same direction and sign treaties. Make treaties with them. So now we're coming into agreement. We're coming into covenant. I'm not talking about accountability. Don't even get me started. It's not about accountability. I don't need you to police me. I don't want to police you. I want brotherhood. I want friendship, which has with it some elements of accountability. But
it's
accountability,
a fruit of relationship.
Accountability can't be the goal.
No.
So sign treaties. And when you're at war, SJ, I'm at war. You have an ally. You have a brother. You have a friend, right, you don't have to go it alone.
Right.
You don't have to go it alone. But if you are swept into the darkness, I mean, that's where all of us are alone.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity to enter into a space like that, or maybe the space is weekly, and you enter into a space where you get to be known and you get to share. Just had a conversation, Mike Glenn and I, who heads up the Elder Sages, we were talking to one of the Elder Sages, and he was sharing with us a couple stories he had never told anybody. And they were boyhood infractions, boyhood things that happen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, wait, that's it? Because he said, "Okay, I really want to talk to you guys. Can I talk to you guys?" But he wanted to be known. It was so courageous. And Mike said, almost reaction, Mike said, "Bro, I love you more because you told us that. I just want you to know that." And it's the very thing that we think disqualifies us from being in a circle or being in a conversation or being on a journey with others becomes the thing that is somehow attractive.
Yeah, and unifies our mission
connects.
And our forces together.
Charlie Waite and Boss Spearman.
That's right. Blue Bonnet.
Those two cowboys talking about some of their regrets and some of the things that they did.
Yeah. Open Range is the movie we're referencing.
And yet they ride together.
They do.
And they fight for each other. If we don't get through this, I need to know your God-given name. So good. Such a great, reminds me of back to Tombstone. It's just what they fought together, and lived together. And very different people. But there was
Band of Brothers is another great one.
It's a big theme. So
yeah.
Here's the Heart of a Warrior quote at the end that I think is good to bring back up. We hope to one day see the hearts of men so foundationally settled, so well trained, so well equipped, and so well engaged that when evil dares raise its head, beloved sons, warrior men will know what to do and do it well.
Yeah. Let that be our prayer.
That's our prayer. That's our hope. So thank you for joining us on the Exploring More podcast, talking about reentry and home fronts and after events, or just, day to day, some things that we feel like are helpful.
Yeah, great reminders.
Helpful ways to roll. And how
to live this way.
When you miss one, or when you somehow it didn't go like you hoped, another one's coming.
Yeah.
And
God's a God of redos.
Get back up and get ready.
Remember when you were a kid, do a redo.
Yeah. That didn't count.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for being with us on the Exploring More podcast. Rate and review, all that stuff. Share the podcast. opportunities. Which one did we ask them to go back to? It was probably an audio one that I mentioned. Oh, 3 miles per hour God.
Yeah,
Godspeed. Godspeed.
Yep.
Great
Yep.
podcast, I think, where we share some of that video on slowing down, taking it slow. So, again, hopefully Caleb can find that URL and throw that on there.
Yeah.
But, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.